Hey, what's going on, guys? With training camp right around the corner, the Giants players currently on their 6-week break. We're going to take some time in today's video to break down the 5 biggest storylines going into the season. We're going to take a look at some position battles to see who will make the final 53, and we're going to give some realistic expectations of this team going into the year. And before we get started, we're going to take a look back at last season where the Giants finished with a 4-13 record. They didn't show much stability at the quarterback position. Head coach Brian Daboll was fired midseason, and even though they did show promise by having multiple double-digit leads in the fourth quarter, the season ended with a bunch of what-ifs. With Malik Neighbors going down early on and Cam Skadigle getting hurt midseason, Jaxson Dart being in and out of concussion protocol, there was just a lot of adversity going on throughout Jaxson Dart's rookie season. But the next 4 years are very crucial to this team's success. It is very important that this team has success in the next 4 years while we pay Jaxson Dart his rookie contract. That will give Joe Shane and company the ability to build a team the best they can around Jaxson Dart, whether that is protecting him, giving him more weapons, or even improving the defense to get stops to give them the ball back. With that being said, we're going to get started by breaking down the 5 biggest storylines heading into training camp. And coming in at number 5 would have to be the fact that the Giants traded Dexter Lawrence back in April. He requested the trade and the team honored it by sending him to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th overall pick in return. And so far, the Giants have attacked replacing him with the strength in numbers approach. They drafted 2 defensive tackles as well as signed 2 veterans after the draft in Shelby Harris and DJ Reader. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to replace Dexter Lawrence with one player. He required 4 hands on him every single play, meaning that the right guard or the left guard had to help the center depending on where Dexter attacked. He was all pro, he was a captain, he was dominant in the run game, and he had great sack numbers even for a nose tackle. And in years past, the Giants have invested highly in their edges, in Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, and even this season they signed Tremaine Edmonds at inside linebacker as well as drafted Arvell Reese to help bolster up their front seven. And as a fan, I would have liked to see Dexter Lawrence continue to play for the Giants, especially for Harbaugh's first year, to make that defense as good as possible in year one. And at the end of the day, it is business, so it's on the Giants' current coaching staff to be able to put all the pieces together. And coming in at number 4 would have to be the stability that the offensive line shows this season. If this unit can stay healthy and build on what they did last year, I feel like for the first time in a long time, they can finally be a strength of this team. Because they're one of the only position groups on this team that has true depth. They have depth on the outside at tackle as well as on the interior. The Giants signed, re signed, and drafted multiple offensive linemen this season. It's going to result in a lot of competition in camp, and the best starting 5 will be out there as long as they stay healthy. And in my opinion, that's Andrew Thomas at left tackle, John Runyon at left guard, John Michael Schmitz at center, rookie Francis Mauigoa at right guard, and veteran Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. And the third biggest storyline going into training camp would have to be the fact that yet again the New York Giants are going into it with the brand new head coach, but this time it does feel a lot different. John Harbaugh brings 2 decades of experience. He brings 2 championships. He's been in the playoffs consistently. And with where the Giants have been the past decade, all the fan base can ask for is to be competitive and to be playing meaningful games in December and January. And before John Harbaugh was even hired as the head coach for the Baltimore Ravens, he was the special teams coordinator. And in my opinion, that means he can communicate with the entire roster rather than just one side of the ball. And for this New York Giants team, that's huge because this team is so young and has lacked leadership at times in the past. And as a fan, I am interested to see how John Harbaugh's training camp practices differ than past seasons. Because from what I remember, Brian Daboll's training camp practices were very laid back. Music was blasting, players were running around having fun, but then at the end of the day, the results didn't show on the field. So I remember watching clips, being all excited, seeing all these highlights. But then when the season came around, September and October were kind of an extension of training camp. And this year will feel and look a little different as the team will head off campus for the first 2 weeks since MetLife Stadium and the facility are hosting World Cup games and events. So this is really going to give the team a chance to bond, focus on the scheme and the execution of it, and head into the preseason with their best foot forward. The second biggest storyline for me going into camp would have to be the amount of players that they have at the wide receiver position and how many this coaching staff will ultimately decide to keep heading into week one. Right now, they are working with the 90-man roster, so they've signed a good amount of guys, re-signed a few, as well as traded up in the draft to get another. As you can see by this graphic, they are invested in the position, but at the same time, they usually only keep 6 at the most. I don't see this team keeping 7. So including Malik Neighbors, if you do have to remove 4 players from this graphic, I would have to start with Jalen Hyatt, Isaiah Hodgins, Braxton Berrios, as well as Juju Smith-Schuster. If Neighbors is not fully healthy going into week one, they can put him on the PUP list, which means he's physically unable to perform. So it doesn't count against the 53-man roster. So you can technically keep another guy temporarily. So there are ways to attack this. So I am interested to see how this coaching staff will go about it. The fan in me does want to see Odell make this team, but usually the players who are deeper on the depth chart are 9 times out of 10 most likely asked to play special teams. And at this point in his career, I just don't see that happening. What I want and what the Giants should do are most likely different. But at the same time, I'm just excited for the pads to come on and for this roster to fill out. And from my perspective, the biggest and most important storyline going into training camp would have to be the development of Jaxson Dart. And I don't mean that as in his skill set or what he has to do to improve. I'm talking about the entire organization's perspective. This has to be their top priority. First and foremost, he has to stay healthy. He can't be going in and out of the blue tent, in and out of concussion protocol because he's taking unnecessary hits. There are times where his legs are needed for us to win games, but he has to understand his value to this team. The amount of drops and the lack of pass rush that happened last season cannot show itself again. This team has to improve around the quarterback in order for them to win games. The O-line's development off of last year, as well as the defense's development behind their new signal caller, the ability to run the ball and stop the run, this all ties into the development of Jaxson Dart. I love our backup in Jameis Winston, but at the same time, he cannot see the field if this team wants to reach its potential. And when it comes to realistic expectations for this team, I'm not going to put a number in the win or loss column. I just want this team to at least be competing in December and January rather than have their season over by Thanksgiving. I want to see this team compete with every single team in the division and be fighting for a playoff berth in December. But at the same time, there's a lot that can happen between now and then. And first things first, training camp is a few weeks away. And if you made it this far in the video, I truly appreciate it. If you can leave your comments down below, like the video, share, and subscribe, that would be truly helpful.